Well, a couple of months ago, I ran into a problem on my little Qidi X-Smart 3 printer. I had a little piece of plastic dangling from the extruder, and I was getting ready to print. It was warming up the print bed, and so I reached in and was going to grab that piece of plastic, and I made contact with the print bed as I was reaching in, and I felt a little static electricity zap the printer. And right away, the printer shut down. The screen went dark. I knew, oh boy, something has happened here. So I turned it off, turned it back on. It went through its cycle, seemed to work fine. And then as I was printing the project that I had been starting, it went through, it printed everything until the very end, and the last couple of layers did not print. It stopped, said that the print job was done, asked me to confirm, but it wasn't done. The print head was still stuck to the model. It hadn't moved back into its home position. The print bed hadn't moved out of the way, and the model was missing the top couple of layers. Everything else had printed. It was really weird. So I turned off the printer, tried it again, same problem. It went through the whole thing, did it again. So I thought, well, maybe I need to run through its calibration. And so I went through the calibration setting to set the offsets, went through the auto bed leveling, and as it was going through the auto bed leveling, I went through the whole step to do that, and then it got to the end where it asked me to save. I clicked on save, and then it came back and said it could not save. The MCU communication was lost. And I go, oh boy, okay. So then I tried to print, and my whole print settings was all out of whack. They had been erased when I ran through that calibration. They were lost, and I was getting a message then that it could not save, and told me to fix it and try again. Well, I wasn't sure what needed to be fixed, but obviously that electrical shock had done something. And so I thought, well, maybe it is effectively the motherboard. Well, the motherboard on this thing is actually a little tiny chip in the bottom of it, and I'm going to show you about that. So our first step to exploring that, we're going to turn off the printer. We're going to unplug the printer. Then we're going to take out the USB chip, get it out of the way. And then we're going to turn the printer over on its side. Okay, if you have a towel or something that you want to set it on to protect that window, that's fine. But now, when you get to the bottom of this, we have a whole bunch of tiny little screws in here. And these screws are little hex head screws. And they gave you a nice hex set that came with your printer. Now we're going to take out these screws across the top down here. Now notice there's a hole here. There's not supposed to be a screw there, so don't get confused when you go trying to put one back in there. There's no threaded insert on the other side, so that's normal. Don't know why it's there, it's just there. Then you have these screws here, and then here and here, but not these two. don't do these. We can do this one. Leave the feet on. Don't do those. Okay, so I'm just going to pop those loose. Let me get my light source here where we can see what's going on. All right, in your box, when you got the printer, you got a nice set of ball head Allen wrenches. And one of these will fit those screws just fine. I've had these out before, so mine are going to pop loose pretty easy. Yours might be a little bit tighter. Just make sure you're going the correct direction, lefty-loosey. And this plate is covering up the whole power supply and everything there, so that's why we needed to unplug it, because there is electricity coming in here and you don't want to accidentally touch that hot wire. And this might be an opportunity, if there's little bits of plastic that have made their way in there, a chance to clean that out too. Okay, this will be the last one. Okay, and now we are in. Okay, so this cable here, you can either push it out of the way or you can unclip it, move it out of the way. This is what will go up and turn on your little LCD screen. So don't forget to turn it on. But the little chip we're talking about is this one, right at the tip of my thumb here. That is your electronics control module, the ECCM, I believe is what that one is. And these cost about, I think it was $33 when I replaced it. I bought it directly from Qidi, but turns out you can buy it on Amazon. And all you have to do is unscrew this little screw right here, this little screw right there. Then that will pop right off. And when you pop it off, you will have a new one ready. Now, when you're doing this, this is the old one that I have right here. So that one, there's no obvious damage to it, but all it does is it'll just push right back on. Now, when you're doing this, if you're on a carpeted floor or anything like that, what I do is I'm going to, before I even take this out of the package, is I'm going to keep contact with my printer. I'm going to take this out with one hand, have it all ready, keep contact with my printer as I take that out so that I'm grounded out. Then I'm going to push that back into place, push it in with my thumb. Then I'm going to screw those screws back in. They're kind of tricky, but you can use the little forceps, the tweezer type tool that you might have with a 3D printer kit, and push that in. Okay, then once you have done that, then you can put everything back together again. Now, it is something that when you replace this, Qidi has an update to its programming, so that its firmware should already be loaded on here. At least all of them that I've heard about. Now, if you buy one of these third party and get a cheaper one, you're going to have to load that on there yourself. So you're going to have access to a computer that has access to the internet, and then they came with a little adapter to plug that into a USB drive in order to load the firmware. This one came with a firmware already on there. However, I will let you know that when you do that, now you're on their updated firmware, and the filament load and unload is not going to work the same now as it did with the original firmware that came with your printer. So that is something to be aware of. There's a little piece of plastic there that is in here, but otherwise things are nice and clean. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back together again. That's it. I think we're fine here. I'm not going to mess with anything in here. You don't want to touch those belts or anything and mess anything up. I'm just looking over and make sure that nothing's out of place. Now, one thing you might be interested in doing while you're at it is if you're having a little bit of an unstable internet connection with your printer, right up here is the internet adapter. And so this is just a little USB slot in here. You can pop the old one out, and these are only about $7. Again, I got it from Qidi, but you can get these from Amazon as well. And I went ahead and put a new one in. I don't think it was faulty, but it does seem to load faster. So it might just be a little bit better networking card. At any rate, this fixed my problem. And so I'm real happy with it. So I'm going to put things back together, and then we'll talk about how to load the filament using this new method. All right, we have all the screws back in. We are ready to set this up. And plug in the power. Turn the power switch back on. All right, it is booted up, and now we are ready to swap out filament. Okay, now the old method, the original method that came with your Qidi printer, most likely, if it was like mine was when I first got it, was you swapped out the filament by going into the firmware function on here, and you would be able to heat up the filament, and then it would unload the filament for you. It would tell you to pull firmly on it as it had melted the filament. Well, that doesn't work anymore. Now I'm going to heat up my filament by pressing on the print head button. Get that up to its operating temperature, 223. All right, we are there now. What you're going to have to do is disconnect this tube, I call it the Bowden tube, from the print head. So it feeds into a little button on the top of the print head. You're going to take your fingernail, push firmly down on that little clip, that little button, and then pull up firmly on this tube. Now, this is a Teflon tube, so it might be kind of slippery, You're going to have to get a good firm grasp of it. Don't bend it. Just pull straight up while you're holding this down. And then it'll come loose. Then I'm going to feed in my new filament just like you ever would. Now I have a special setup here where I can feed mine from the side. Makes it a lot easier when I am changing filament over the old setup where you had to go around back and it was just very awkward. This is a lot easier for me. All right, I'm just pushing mine through until I get a couple of inches of the new filament sticking out. Now I'm going to push that filament straight down into the print head, into the extruder, and then I'm going to press the button to feed filament, and it'll take it away from me, and now it's feeding in. Now I'll just push that tube back into place. It's just that easy. And now I have fresh filament. You can see I have the old filament, which was black, starting to ooze out. I'm going to press this button a couple more times until I have my new color coming out nice and clean. This is a pink one for a little project I'm doing for one of my students. Right now it's kind of a mix of grayish pink because of the black that's still in the nozzle. Push it one more time and I should have a good clean pink, and I do. All right, then I'll go ahead and turn off the nozzle heater. Makes it a little less hot when I grab that hot plastic. Get that out of the way, and now I am ready to print. That's it for that one. Now I'm going to show you the process of doing a color swap. All right, we're going to set up a project that needs to be printed in more than one color. So I'm going to import these little dice for the Ganji Squid Game. There are 5 little dice. And they print out just fine in a single color, but I have a student who would like to have them with these little shapes on top in a different color. So the main part of the dice are going to be purple, and then the geometric shape on the very top is going to be in a different color. So the way we'll do that is, first off, I'm going to zoom in on one of the die. And I'm going to get an angle on this so that I can see the edge of it. I want this to print out in one color all the way up to the top, and then after it finishes this very top layer of the main body, I want it to pause and then let me switch to a new color in order to print the geometric shape in a new color. So we'll click over here on Preview, and then on this side of our screen we have a little slider that, as I move this up, it is going to make my dice disappear until I have just the thing that I want printing after the color change. Now you want to make sure that you don't leave this last layer on there. If you do, then that's going to be printed off and it won't look right. So we're going to go up one more layer, and you can actually see. Now let go of your left mouse button, and you can actually see, if you zoom in, you can see the individual layers, and there are only like 4 layers that are going to be left on this. Right now, I'm going to left click on that little plus sign right here, and that's going to put in my color change right at that point. Now, if I accidentally put that at the wrong spot, I can click on this little X, take away my color change, or move the slider back and forth until I like where it is. Double checking, I do like where it is. Click it again, and I have it. Now, right up in here, when I look at this, it's telling me at what point I'm going to be doing the color change. But I think we'll be able to see that after we slice it also. Now, we can click and hold this and see what this is going to look like from different angles. Make sure it's doing what we want it to do, and it looks good to me. Alright, so now let's go ahead and slice this. And over here, it tells us the total time for this project is going to be 48 minutes. But right up here, it tells us that the change from the blue to the pink color is going to happen at 47 minutes. And then I'll need one more minute to print those last 4 layers. So we'll come back 47 minutes after starting the print job, and we'll be able to, the printer will pause and wait for us to change. Okay, so let's get this project going, and I'll see you back in about 47 minutes. All right, our project is at the point where the print head has just moved to the back side of the printer, and now we are ready for our change. So if we look at the screen, it is asking us to replace the filament. So I am going to click on replace filament. And then I'll go to the back of the print head. And like we did before, I'm going to push down on this button with my finger and then pull up firmly but steadily on my Bowden tube and expose my filament. And then I'm going to snip off the filament, which I don't think I mentioned it before, but I hold my cutters at about a 45-degree angle so that I'm cutting that, and it'll make it easier to insert new filament next time I'm printing with this particular spool. Okay, now I am threading the new filament, the white, through my Bowden tube like we did before. I have a couple of extra inches hanging out the end. And then on my screen, I'm going to push the arrow on the right, which is going to initiate the heating process. And then in the back, when it finishes heating up, you're going to see a tendril of melted filament that is going to come out of the extruder. And that takes a minute or so, but now that is coming out. You can see it spooling out from the back side. Now back up in the top of the hot end, I'll push my filament in, and then I'm going to click load on the screen. And again, it'll grab my filament away from me. I'll push my Bowden tube back into place. And that's all set. Now I'm going to click retry until I see my white filament coming out of the hot end. I want to see good, clean, white filament. And there we go. That's good. Now I can click completed. I'm going to pull that excess filament out of there. That's just trash. It'll get in the way. And then I'll click the arrow here to finish the job. And that's only going to take another minute or so. This has ended up being a pretty nice job also. I think my student's going to like this set of dice just fine. All right, and it is done. Now this comes with a little carrying case that I need to print out the same way in 2 colors. So I will set that up, but that'll take care of my demonstration, and I hope it helps you solve a problem that you might have had if you have ever lost contact with your electronics control module and can no longer use your printer. Then that's how you fix it, and then this is how you change filaments in the middle of a job, or at any point whenever you need to change filaments. So much easier to do so at the print head, I think, now. So I hope this helps, and I'll wish you good luck in your 3D printing. Have a great day.